Testing. Welcome, everyone. Thank you for attending the McDonald Borough Town Hall meeting regarding a possible regionalization of police services. My name is Tom Rockwell. I am the President of Council of McDonald Borough, and I will be the moderator of tonight's meeting. First thing I would like to do is introduce you to some of the town officials here tonight. Council members in attendance are myself, Vice President Ray Miller, Mike Bish, Tom McQuillan, Jody Robertson, Amber Wasco. I believe Kirk Inskep is not here tonight. We also have in attendance McDonald Borough Mayor David Cooper, McDonald Borough Manager Marie Maximovich, and McDonald Borough Police Chief Dennis Alburn. We also have visitors from the Governor's Center for Local Government Services who will help with any questions concerning the regional police study. I'm going to present you with a short 18-page slideshow and give you a brief description of the highlights of the proposed merger and present you with some of the advantages and disadvantages of going through with this. If you could please hold any questions you have until after I finish the slideshow, which is probably going to be about 15 to 18 minutes. We will have a panel of people go up front and they will take all your questions. Why are we here? 2 years ago, the 4 municipalities of McDonald Borough, Midway Borough, Mount Pleasant Township, and Robinson Township contacted the Governor's Center for Local Government Services to gather information and to prepare a proposal to see what it would take and what it would cost to merge the McDonald and the Mount Pleasant police departments to form a regional force to patrol all 4 municipalities. In September of 2023, a regional police study was completed and presented to the municipalities. Since then, the 4 communities have been having discussions and meetings about the pros and the cons of the study. Each municipality is currently gathering more detailed data and more detailed numbers to evaluate how this affects their own interest. This week, all 4 of the municipalities are holding their own town hall meetings to hear the voices of the residents. What we hear from our residents during these meetings will play an important role in what direction we move in the future. I strongly urge you to fill in a survey form that you received when you came in tonight and give us your opinion on what council should do moving forward. A little McDonald history. The charter to incorporate was in the fall of 1889 when we started. At that point, we officially became McDonald Borough. February 1890 was the first McDonald election. 171 votes were cast. S.S. Johns was elected McDonald's first Burgess. The term Burgess would later become known as mayor. The first McDonald council meeting was February 22nd, 1890 at the old railroad station. April 20th, 1890 saw council adopt ordinance number 1, their very first piece of action. Section 3 of that ordinance number 1 states, council shall appoint a high constable, which gave us the very first McDonald police chief. Section 18 of that same ordinance number 1 gave that person the authority to serve and protect the community. It says that the high constable shall have power to arrest all persons guilty of malicious mischief, disturbing the peace and quiet of the neighborhood, drunkenness, or who are upon the streets or alleys at unseemly hours without reasonable cause. With that, John Keenan was appointed McDonald Borough's first high constable. For reference, the McDonald Police Department, being established in the year 1890, would then be 3 years older than the Volunteer Fire Department, which was established in 1893 according to their website. A couple of pictures and memories of our current police department in its past. McDonald Police Department has been the lead in a pseudo-regional police force for many years. During the pre-COVID years, at the largest area of coverage, McDonald had contracts to enforce the law with Burgettstown Borough, Midway Borough, Independence Township, Robinson Township, and West Middletown Township. Post-COVID years brought changes. Difficulty with staffing brought by the factors of less applicants graduating through the police academy and exiting, McDonald officers taking positions in neighboring departments, which were offering more money. Also changing, some municipalities not renewing their contracts due to financial cutbacks of their own, and also some municipalities asking for a reduction of patrol hours and a cut to the contract, which led to McDonald terminating those contracts due to not being fiscally responsible based on travel costs versus revenue. Today, the McDonald Police Department roster is stable, and contracts with Midway and Robinson Township continue while being financially beneficial to McDonald. McDonald Police Department's current roster: Police Chief, 1 full-time sergeant, 1 full-time patrol officer, 6 part-time patrol officers, and 1 administrative personnel. McDonald Borough will be hiring 1 additional full-time patrol officer in June, as stated in the McDonald Borough 2024 yearly budget. Now the big slide. How much does it cost to run the McDonald Police Department? Based on the McDonald Borough 2024 yearly budget, taking in consideration the employee salaries and all the expenditures needed versus revenues brought in by the department, we estimate the cost to run the department at approximately $410,375. And again, that is expenditures minus the revenues brought in by the department, including contracts, fine money, and donations. Some background statistics of the 4 municipalities. I know this one's kind of fuzzy, I'll try to read these numbers to you. In the left column, you will see population density per square mile, the square miles of each location, length of roads, and the median household income. In the far right column, you will see the totals or the averages. All these numbers were based on the 2020 census. For population, Mount Pleasant is at 3,290 people. McDonald Borough, 2,251. Robinson, 1,895. Midway, 951. For a grand total of 8,387 people. And again, this is according to the 2020 census. Another important one, square miles, 35.7 for Mount Pleasant, 1 square mile for McDonald, 21.2 for Robinson, 0.4 for Midway. The road miles, 86.9 for Mount Pleasant, 10.8 miles for McDonald, 53.5 for Robinson, 6.1 for Midway. Median household income, $69,000 for Mount Pleasant, $49,976 for McDonald, $65,179 for Robinson, $57,857 for Midway. And again, all those are based on the 2020 census. The Regional Police Department. The Regional Police Study conducted by the Governor's Center for Local Government Services was completed in September of 23. The executive summary reads, this proposal would establish a regional police department consisting of 13 full-time officers and 1 full-time clerical person to McDonald Borough, Midway Borough, Mount Pleasant Township, and Robinson Township, and their combined population of $1,387. The Regional Police Department establishes 5 new operational units within the proposed police department. Administration, which would be 1 chief and 1 deputy chief or a captain. The patrol unit, 2 patrol sergeants and 7 patrol officers. Traffic unit, 1 patrol officer or traffic officer. 1 investigation unit, 1 patrol officer or detective. And then the clerical records, which would be the 1 assistant secretary, equaling 13. The proposed budget provides funding for all 13 officers plus the 1 clerical staff person beginning in the first full year of operation. It also eliminates the need for all part-time officers, for the use of any part-time officers. That would be in all full-time police department. It increases patrol coverage to a minimum of 2 officers at all times, with 3 to 4 officers on duty 60% of most shifts. More officers are available for duty during heavier peak times or for any emergency situation that may arise. Reduces the total number of police vehicles and the subsequent cost for some from 10 to 8. This includes a startup fund for the repainting and re-equipping of 8 current marked and unmarked vehicles, which will then be retained by the 2 current departments and reassigned to the regional department. This includes all costs, rents, and related expenditures for the 1,500 square feet of space at the new Mount Pleasant Township Police Department headquarters to serve as the regional police headquarters. Also includes all costs to allow for the use of the current McDonald Borough headquarters to then serve as a 1,200 square foot regional police substation at that facility as well. And this will also qualify the new regional police department to receive various federal, state, and or county regional police assistance grants. The proposed organizational chart. The consolidation process requires abolishment of the existing political subdivision boundaries. The new regional police department would be operating under a newly formed regional police commission, consisting of elected officials from each of the participating municipalities. At this time, the proposal is to have a commission or a board be 2 members from McDonald, 2 members from Mount Pleasant, 2 members from Robinson, and 1 member from Midway. As you can see in the org chart, the Regional Police Commission would be at the top, and then filter down through the police chief, deputy chief, 2 sergeants, and then the patrol officers. This is the coverage map. As you can see, the bottom green blob is Mount Pleasant. The upper green blob is Robinson, and McDonald, and Midway. These would be the zones, zones 1 and zones 2. The proposal is to have the patrol area divided into 2 zones. The current Mount Pleasant Police Station is to be considered the headquarters due to the recent renovations and having more square footage. The McDonald Police Station would be maintained as a substation and having half the fleet stationed there to enhance visibility, response times, to cut down on vehicle maintenance due to mileage. The proposed budget. The chart on the left is taking into consideration the personnel costs like salaries, benefits, and pensions. The total of the personnel cost would be $1,205,000. The chart on the right is the non-personnel cost, like uniforms, supplies, vehicles. The total proposed budget would be approximate, well, the chart on the right of the non-personnel cost equals $295,000 for a grand total of $1.5 million. is the proposed budget, 1.5 million. The cost distribution between the four municipalities. In this study, there were different methods concerning on how to distribute the cost. Divided equally or proportionally, according to either the percent of the total population of the region or per capita, which is per person of each municipality. For the proposal, it was suggested that the per capita method be used. The formula to attain the proposed $1.5 million budget is to have a $180 per capita price times the population number of Mount Pleasant, McDonald, and Robinson, and a $90 per capita price for the population number of Midway. These totals would be combined to add up to the 1.5 million. That's how it would be paid. Advantages to McDonald entering into an agreement for police regionalization. For the purpose of this presentation tonight, we only listed 5 advantages and 5 disadvantages. There are more, and you, the public, hopefully will fill out the survey with things that you see as advantages or disadvantages and let us know your opinions. So please fill out the survey. The advantages that we list. Number 1, staffing. McDonald has had a high turnover rate. 48 officers in the past 10 years. 21 officers in the past 5. 13 officers in the past 3 years. That's our turnover rate. These numbers include both full and part-time. This is due to officers leaving for more money when it's so hard to compete against the North and the South Fayettes, which are paying starting salaries of $80,000. That's their current starting salary. There is also the problem of less applicants going through the police academy. Those numbers, ever since COVID, has gone down every year. Just not enough people going through the system. Number 2, advantage. And all full-time patrol officers. For McDonald, this would cut down on always having to train new part-time officers over and over and having an all-experienced force. Number 3, better patrol coverage. The possibility of having more officers on patrol as proposed in the study. Number 4, officer safety. Knowing that the officers have backup that they can have there quickly and having more senior officers to take leadership. And number 5 advantage, the ability to get state and federal grants. A big advantage for a regional department. Disadvantages. The number 1 disadvantage, control, budget flexibility. McDonald oversees the current department. McDonald has the final say to the department's budget. It's our decision what the police budget is. Number 2, the exact cost for the McDonald to merge. The numbers in this study are approximate. We anticipate, with our best guess, that our cost may be a little lower to a little higher. It's basically a wash in terms of cost. That's just our estimated guess. It's just a guess. But how do you vote on something not knowing an exact cost? None of those costs will be determined until the commission is up and running and the charter is established. Number 3, community name and identity. It's called McDonald Police Department. Is McDonald ready to give that up? Number 4, historical. McDonald Police Department has been around for over 134 years. Number 5 disadvantage, loss of position. The proposed police study states that no current full-time officer will lose their job. But there is a police chief for McDonald, and there is a police chief for Mount Pleasant. Only one person can be a regional chief. Even if one or both of the current chiefs lose out on being the new chief, it will still be basically a demotion to a deputy or captain's role. On behalf of the McDonald Borough Council, I would like to thank you for listening to this presentation. I tried to keep it short and sweet. I encourage you to fill out the survey that each of you have. The data and your comments will come in handy to us. Please fill this out. At this time, we will have a panel of people take their seats up front, and we will open the floor to questions. I do ask, as soon as we're ready, let's try and make this as orderly as possible. And please raise your hand, and Jody Robertson will call on you one at a time to ask your questions, and we'll do our best to answer them. Thank you. Okay, at this time, we're going to have people, we're going to try to do it as orderly as possible. We're going to try to do it one at a time. If you could raise your hand, and then Jody's going to call on you. You can either come up to the mic or just shout your question, and we'll try to answer it as best as we can. So who wants to go first? We'll take comments or questions. I know that there's a lot of people in favor. Mr. Cochran.
Hi, Matt Cochran. A quick question. With past regionalization efforts in similar type scenarios, any idea on what type of grant money or amount of grant money that you've seen in the past, or even on a percentage basis? If you have a total budget of 1.5 million, any idea on what type of grants they would be positioned for in this type of a scenario?
Yeah, if we're going to let, these are our visitors from the state. Ann, if you could introduce yourself.
Sure. Hi there. My name is Ann Weaver-Morrow. I'm a local government policy specialist and support the emergency services program. With me on virtually is Joe Kirshner and Jerry Simpson. They are our two police consultants that are going to help and support and answer your questions. So Joe, I'm going to have you go ahead and talk about the grant funding, and then I can talk about the municipal assistance program that we have through this center.
Yeah, but as far as the grants, there's several right now.
Wait 1 second, Joe. Let me turn this up. Okay, go ahead.
You hear me now?
Yes. Is that better?
Okay. Yeah, as far as the grants, there's several right now that are available to regionals, and they're available only to regionals, and I might emphasize that. There's one from the Pennsylvania Commission on Crime and Delinquency, which is normally a startup grant. That's been running around $150,000 for startup money. And then, you know, uniforms, cars, those types of things when there's a changeover. There's another grant available right now from DCED. It's called the MAP grant. It's the Municipal Assistance Program grant. And one of the key things that grant is for shared services, regional services, regional fire, regional police, regional ambulance, those types of entities as well. And that varies anywhere from 20,000 upwards, depending on what your needs are, what your requests are. There's some federal grants out there now. There's one's called the COPS grant. That's for additional officers. That provides funding for 3 years for additional full-time officer. There's another federal grant called the BYRN grant, B-Y-R-N-E. That's a federal grant for equipment. And again, computers, vests, cameras, weapons, you know, you name it. And the other big one that's out there now is called the LSA grant, the local share account grants. And that's the casino money that's coming into Pennsylvania. And that's 2% of the total take of the gambling revenue in Pennsylvania is given back to the LSA program. And then that is in turn distributed throughout the state through the various counties that have their own casinos, and then there's a statewide pot that goes into for the counties that don't have a casino. And it runs right now, this year is about $120 million. And that's just the 2%, about $120 million. Now that's accessible, not just to police, that's for everybody. That's for municipalities, for people that bought dump trucks and fixed up buildings and additions and, you know, fire departments, the ambulances, so forth and so on. But and that's a turning over, that's a repeated number of grant money each year, because the gambling money, obviously, as you all know, is pretty consistent coming in. So there, right now, we're having a lot of success with a lot of regional police departments getting some pretty significant grant money.
Joe, will it be up to the commission or the board to apply for those grants? Who?
The commission and the chief. And again, a lot of different places do it different ways. Some places, some regionals have one of the municipalities assist them. If they have somebody on staff that's good at that.
Like a grant
and
writer.
they say, hey, well, you know, like a grant writer. The grants are they're not that hard anymore. A lot of them are online, fillable forms. They're not, from what I'm hearing again, from what I've seen the last 5, 7, 10 years, they're getting a lot easier to apply for. And they're simple. They're not to sit down and write 50 pages and turn it in and all that stuff. We don't need to do that anymore. So, you know, again, you can do it in-house. So the administrative assistant that we have budgeted for the department, he or she can do it, the chief can do it, or they can, you know, sometimes there's departments, one of the cops do it.
Okay, great.
So there's different ways you can, whoever.
Great.
Whoever.
Matt, does that answer?
Thank you
your
very
question?
much, appreciate it.
All right.
Well,
Next. Who's next?
Anyone else?
Joe.
Would you like
Hi,
to
my
stand up?
name is Sue Casarin. I'm a resident here in McDonald. Curiosity is getting the best of me. I know this is a meeting for the residents, but what I'd like to know is, how does the police department feel?
It's up to the citizens here, what they want to do.
You don't have an opinion?
It's up to the citizens. I mean, I'm
You
not,
pleading the fifth?
it's not my favorite thing.
Aw, he's all red.
It's not my favorite thing.
Hey, to answer your question, I think we're all here to learn. The purpose of this meeting is to get your feedback so that the 7 people can make the decision. This is just part of the process, so we're happy you're here and want to know how you feel about it.
I know for myself, it changes daily. I hear one thing one day and hear something the next, and I don't know how I would vote on it. I really don't.
Yeah,
And I'm just so excited that we had such a great turnout tonight.
yeah.
And to be able to read, I'm just dying to read what you guys have written back there on the surveys, because that might influence me. You know, like, because I really don't know how it's going to play out.
But as a police officer, I would be curious to understand
I'm not
your
for it.
position.
I'm not for it, as it is now.
Thank you. I appreciate your honesty.
Can you use the microphone, please? They can't hear.
We can't hear back here.
Microphone up here.
Could the chief give some reasons why, or some suggestions?
I think I think the biggest thing for the chief is the loss of position. He's worried for his future and his family. And just to be honest with you, I mean, like I stated in the disadvantages, there's 2 chiefs right now. There can only be one, and the possibility of neither of them making the chief. It'll be up for the commission to make that decision. But he's worried for his job. Okay?
Hi, my name's Lee Moss, lifelong citizen of I said my name is Lee Moss, I'm a lifelong citizen of McDonald Borough, and this might be a dumb question, but it's all new to me. Can you explain what a substation would look like here? And you were saying that the current police department would become a substation. Is that like, it's always manned, there's always like, would it feel any different to me as a citizen? There'd always be police officers at the substation that?
The main operation would be out of Mount Pleasant, and if we need to do something, there would be an officer here to work out of that station.
Right, but isn't the way that the study proposes, there will be 2 zones, right? There will be Mount Pleasant and Midway would be patrolled out of Mount Pleasant Station, and McDonald and Robinson would be from our station.
Correct.
I think that's how the study was.
I think one of council's demands would be that the substation be manned at all times. I mean, and going into this, I think that we have certain demands that we would want to see that commission, because there has to be a charter made, you know, the rules of this the new police department. And I think that would be one of the rules that we would like to be instituted, is that be manned constantly. And again, like half the fleet would be stationed there anyways. It wouldn't be feasible financially to have the entire fleet at Mount Pleasant. It wouldn't make any sense. Half the fleet would have to be here.
Phil has a question in the back here, or Midway?
Yeah, so my name's Philip Boggs, I'm a resident here in town. It's more of a couple points rather than questions I just wanted to bring up. Please stop me and correct me if any of this is not accurate or if I say too much. The first point that I would like to point out is, you know, the current model today, it's working, but it's not going to be sustainable in the next 5 to 10 years. We've all seen what the economy has done in the last 3 to 5 years. Wage increases have to come halfway with meeting the cost of living increases. Again, stop me if I'm not allowed to say this stuff, but to my knowledge, the borough has not raised the taxes on residents in 8 years.
8 years.
And even at that, we're pretty well capped out, correct? So to raise more funding to pay the officers what they deserve, what they need, it's going to have to come away from other things from the borough's budget. Having all the municipalities put in equally is going to help everybody in the long run and make this a sustainable future for the police force. The other point I wanted to make is I saw the disadvantages, and I can appreciate the history. I can appreciate, you know, where we've come from. But, you know, at the end of the day, our safety has to come first. And there was another point that I had in here and I lost it. I think I lost it. I'll come back.
We'll come back to you, Phil. All good points. All good points. And I agree like 100% with you, is the way that we put Band-Aids on things now, we rely on contracts money and donations. And I think I saw on social media about the getting grant money. And we do. We currently get grant money. Someone said something about contacting Jason Ortitai about grants, but this man over here gets grants. He writes the grants. He has a college degree, and in all that stuff. And I believe last year it was called the Heroes.
Yeah.
The Heroes grants, and it was a 15.
Mayor helped out.
The mayor $15,000 in order to subsidize the existing police officers to make them want to stay. It was like a bonus. But that was something that we applied for and we did get. And things like that help us sustain for the time being. And you are right. Our goal as a council needs to think 5 years in advance. We can't think about next year, 2 years, 3 years. It needs to be 5, and we need to have a long-term plan in place. And if those numbers of youngsters going into the police academy continue to decline, that's going to hurt police forces all over the place. And like I said, we cannot compete with salaries with everybody else.
Pastor Justin?
I like the proposal in general. I think what you said about the charter is so important. You know, is there always going to be an officer in some, you know, mileage distance, unless there's a, you know, how do we keep people close to us? I think that all those things are just, when you work those out, I think it could be a much more professional force, a much more reputable force, you know, all those advantages I see. I was wondering, is Midway in hardship? Why are they being charged half? They have a higher per capita.
And what's that?
It's a patrol time, they're only getting 12 hours a week.
Joe, did you hear that question?
Yeah. There was a lot of discussion during the study about Midway. Did Midway want to come in? Did Midway not want to come in? Did Midway want to go to the state police? And we had a lot of discussions internally with some of the officials from all the municipalities. And we've done this in other studies. Midway, quite frankly, is so small. Their population is small. The borough is only 0.4 of a square mile. They only have 6 miles of roads. So there's no comparison between Robinson, McDonald, and Mount Pleasant to Midway. There just is not, from a policing standpoint. You can literally drive 6 miles of roads in 15 minutes, literally. So with all that being said, and to bring them in, we thought at least we'll charge them half price per capita, which is reasonable, and quite frankly, we thought a fair assessment based on the amount of calls that they would have and the patrols that they would get. And again, getting half the money is better than getting none of the money. And again, their money that they put in comes to about $47,000. So that $47,000 goes to offset some of the other costs. If they charge them $180, and we say, no, they're going to say, no, we're out, we're going to the state police, then you lose $47,000, and you're going to wind up on the calls in Midway anyway, unfortunately, I think, probably for nothing. So it was kind of a judgment call. We've done it in the past, it works out actually pretty well, and there's nothing saying down the line that that amount can't be increased. So that's why we did what we did with Midway.
Barb?
Yes.
I think the first question I have is the information that we were shown on the slideshow. Is there a way that we can get that? Because I would actually like to have that, because I thought there was so much on there. But yet at the same time, I felt like a lot more could have been. But I understand for.
Stop by at the municipal building,
Okay.
to our office, and we'll get you a copy.
Okay. The second question I have, so you guys are talking about a board. And if I remember, you were talking about 2 from each municipality except for Midway would have 1. Is that correct? So it'd be a 7 total?
Correct.
So my question is then, and I apologize because I'm not a political person, I don't understand a damn thing about it and probably never will. So my question is, how are they being chosen? How is this board going to be chosen?
That's a very good question, because I don't know the answer to that one.
So, Jerry.
And I don't think any McDonald person knows the answer to that one, so I'm going to leave that one up to the state.
Good evening. Can everybody hear me?
Yes.
All right, good. I prefer not to use much. My name's Jerry Simpson. I'm a former police chief of a regional police department, and I help. My part of the assistance in any of these regional projects is the help to design the charter agreement that fits the partner communities that want to come together. And they're all unique. They're all different. But to your question, it is comprised of the elected officials selected by the communities that are in the partner agreement. So in McDonald Borough, how many council people we have?
7.
7. You have a mayor.
Yes.
So that body of elected decision makers would decide who would serve as their commissioners to the regional police department's commission.
From their own,
Can they be a non-elected person?
No.
It has to be an
They're
elected.
decision makers over budgetary control, no.
Can it be
Not a good
separate?
advice, not good, to have people who don't have budgetary control at the end of the day to be on that decision, body where there's budgetary control.
Go
all right,
ahead.
I have another part to my original question. So you're saying that each location will have their amount of people, but it's gonna come from our board of elected officials?
Correct, so the McDonald group would be comprised of the elected officials that you voted into office.
And we take two
And then
from
they
there.
would decide in their group,
So they're gonna make that decision of which two will go forward?
yes.
Okay, so then it also comes down to, so we're talking about these guys' jobs. Now, in the slide, if I recall, again, and correct me if I'm wrong, we're talking about nobody's losing their job per se, like they're all in a
That's what we were
position.
told.
However,
Is that true, Jerry? We were told that all,
You don't have 30 full-time officers.
Well, no, no,
but all
Uh,
full-times
the ones that
would
are
keep the
Correct.
job.
That's correct. Let me make sure I understand the question, okay? No full-time police officer loses their job. If there are part-timers that go beyond 13, right? So I don't, without knowing how many total police officers are among these 4 communities or 2 communities. Okay, well, if we got more than 13, then we've got a decision to make. In the project that I work for up in the Eastern Regional Mon Valley, up on the east side of Allegheny County, which has started operations April 1. In that case, we approached it a little differently. They had some troubled police officers that were onboarding and some that were coming a little late. So we developed basically an onboarding process for current employees. And it worked out fine, worked out perfectly, in fact. So it's something we work through with the commission on how they go about doing that. But no one loses their job unless they don't want to work for the organization as it changes into this regional platform.
okay,
Or
so,
a regional model, I should say.
okay. Sorry, I'm taking up a lot of space, but I just got a million questions.
That's all right.
Go ahead. So, when it comes down to making that decision, so we don't know between McDonald and Mount Pleasant how many officers are currently employed full-time and or otherwise? Nobody knows that?
3, correct?
11.
There's 11 total between both?
I think there's 11 full-time and the rest are part-time, yes.
Okay, so the 11 people should keep their job, but we're gonna have to go, obviously, like you said, we have 2 chiefs, so only one of them, actually, no.
Well, there's a-
You're stating
there's a
there's a
deputy chief.
possibility that somebody else can be hired for the position, which means both of them will lose their position they have.
That has to be decided. Yes.
And that's gonna be decided by the board.
By the commission. That'll be written in its charter on how that, who decides who the chief is. Whether they go through an independent, company that interviews for the police chief position.
So if I could, I know I'm not allowed to ask questions, but I want to just touch on something the gentleman said in the back there for a moment. I'm sorry, I don't mean to pick on you, I don't know you. But you said something
He's perfect to pick on.
that is absolutely worth fair to saying again, across the Commonwealth or across the nation, with all your communities, big and small, and I've seen some larger communities than this, it's about sustainability. Can you sustain your local services in the present business model? That's how I kind of frame the narrative of these discussions. Like it or not, public safety is a business funded by the public's dollars. And if it's not sustainable, then you're going to be chasing grants, like that gentleman asked over there. When we build these regional police department discussions, we don't build a budget around a grant. If we get the grants, God bless. If we don't, we've already built the budget to fit what the public's dollars can sustain and with obviously with the commission input. So to be clear on that, we do. We chase them aggressively. In the project I mentioned a few months ago, we acquired about $650,000 worth of grants. That came out of nowhere, but it was a lot of work on the back end by people trying to help that group do just that. But we didn't build a budget around that.
We got a question back here first. Renee, I'll get to you next.
Yes, my name's Bob. I am not, I'm going to clear the air, I am not a resident of McDonald. I am a resident of Robinson. Why am I here? We have contributed to the McDonald Police Department. In the 5-year time, it will be a $400,000 investment for McDonald. My concern is, and why we do this, we started in 2022, we bought them body cameras, we bought them vests. We hired a full-time officer for McDonald. 2023, 2024, 25, and 26. We invested about $400,000 within 5 years to McDonald. Why am I here? Why are we investing in the police department? If we don't continue to invest in the police department, in McDonald, in Robinson, in Midway, in Mount Pleasant, I did a study with the surrounding police departments. There will not be police in these 4 departments. They just can't, it's a business. He said it's a business. I could be an officer that come out of the academy. I could come to McDonald. I could be here for a year and make $55,000, $60,000 a year. I could go down the street and make 80 to 100. And there's nobody in this room that wouldn't do that. I'd like to introduce the other chief over there. I want to give a round of applause for anybody that serves on the police department. So let me tell you why. They're an example after example after example of why I wouldn't become a police officer today. You would not put me in a police vehicle today with one person on a shift and send me out to a call. I'm going home to my family, okay? I agree with the study. I'm still learning like you guys are learning. I've been to Robinson last night. Unfortunately, okay, they didn't want to listen, okay? I have to say this is the most professional crowd that I've been to. Tomorrow, Mount Pleasant, okay? The next day I go to Midway. I'm not sure I'm going to be well, okay? Let me give you some statistics, and I think I want to correct one thing. It could be not my fault. You said the McDonald Police Department, I have it in 2023 that they spent $735,152.
Expenditures.
Expenditures, correct. So let me just run through real quick. I have an accounting background, I'm going to run real quick, but I'm going to break it down to the point where everybody in the room, before you leave here, you will fully understand what it costs everybody in this room and why I'm here, okay? Mount Pleasant is $646,514. They have 3,290 residents. It costs them $197 per year per person. McDonald, and this is where I have a problem. I'm not a McDonald resident. I'm a Robinson resident. $735,152. You have 2,251 residents. You guys are paying $326 per person, okay? Let's go to Robinson.
Can I stop you right there because it's not an accurate number?
Okay.
It's not an accurate number.
This number's not accurate?
No. Because you're only reading expenditures.
Okay.
You have to take in consideration the contract money, your donations, and the fine money that is brought into the department, revenue. So that's where I got the 410.
Okay.
Is because I took the revenue minus
You're minusing the contributions from Robinson, Midway, and us.
from the expenditures.
Okay.
Because our department makes money. Our department brings revenue in, and I have to subtract that from the expenditures.
Okay. That's the difference between this report. Okay.
Yes.
So here's, and then we'll kind of put that aside because we're dealing with 2 different numbers. Robinson Township, 1,895 residents, again, that's the township I'm from, pays $57. Midway, 951 residents, they're paying $50, okay? We, as Robinson, it's why we stepped back up in 2022. Robinson and Midway is living off of McDonald, okay? You guys are residents, I'm not, okay? So, let's go to another report real quick. So the cost per day in Robinson for a resident is 16 cents a day. So let's break this down. We're going to dump it down a little bit. In Midway is 13 cents. Now I'm going to go to his number because I'm going to subtract off the study and I'm going to break it down. roughly you guys are between 45 and 50 cents a day. Mount Pleasant is at 53 cents a day. So this year, last year, with COVID and everything else, okay, and I use this example, is utility companies came and they cranked up everybody's charges about 17 to 20%. Nobody in this room went out and ripped the gas meter off the side of your house and says, I'm not paying for it. Nobody went out and took the meter off the side of the house and said, I'm not paying for it.
Mr. Hutton, we're gonna cut you off. I'm sorry. I get your numbers and stuff. I'm gonna give a lot of other people an opportunity to say stuff. I think what you're stating is the perfect example why Robinson had a rowdy crowd last night. Why are they willing to go up 3 times as much as they're paying now? And they came out in force last night to dispute that. Why do they want to raise taxes 3 times? Because they're getting away with, a lot right now. But their percentage, yeah, they're only getting like 4 or 6 hours a day drive through. So they're getting what they paid for. Now, in the opposite direction, do they want better service? Do they want a say at the board, at the table? That's what I think a lot of people last night didn't understand, is control is a big thing. And when you don't have control, and you don't have a say at the table, then you're getting lousy coverage. You're getting what you pay for. Pay a little bit more money, you get better patrol, just like Phil was back here saying. Safety is important these days. And I think maybe paying a little bit more, gets that. All right, let's keep moving on. Who's next? Renee, go ahead.
Two-part question.
Yeah.
So basically, we as McDonald are covering Robinson and Midway anyway. So A, what's the plan if this were to be voted on? Like, what's the timeline look like? When's it being voted on? When would it start? And who's voting on it? Because if we are patrolling, is Midway and Robinson getting a say like we were just talking about? Who gets this vote? Who makes this decision?
Dan, you want to take that one?
This is how it really works, okay? So you have your study, okay, you have it. And then the groups, the communities that want to continue forward into the next phase, okay? I want to say this out loud, nice and loud. At $0, we, DCD, will come in and help you work on your charter agreements, what we call phase 2, okay? And it's a non-binding process. The great part of that process is you get to explore these questions a little bit more deeply. Like, I think I heard, hey Joe, he's my colleague here. You get to explore some of these questions like budget a little bit more deeply, right? So you're looking at things now that are really good. They're not far off, but you get to sharpen the pencil a little bit and start to understand what some of these challenges really look like, so you can start to talk about, is this model sustainable? In that charter agreement process, we tackle the deal breakers first and foremost, okay? Because if we can't get past them, what's the point? That usually identifies the communities that want to say, we're aiming to win it, or nah, we're just not. And then in some manner, they usually excuse themselves. The people that remain, or the communities that remain, and these are the, when I say people, that is the elected officials. It is an executive session process because they are essentially, I'm a solicitor, they are in negotiations, okay? They're in a contract negotiation. The charter agreement is essentially an intermunicipal cooperation agreement or a contract. And if they're doing really good by their public, they should be coming out every meeting and saying, this is what we worked on this month. This is what we worked on this month. Now, the project I keep referencing up in the eastern part of Allegheny County, I put a very aggressive timeline on it. And that was without knowing some of the other factors going on. Like, what do the cops look like? Do they have any type of skill set such as grant writing and stuff like that? What did the support staff look like? So I put an aggressive timeline on without not knowing there wasn't much support in behind the scenes. So it took a little hands-on work by myself and another colleague of mine to kind of like build that product out. That being said, we still had a charter agreement within 6 months. 6 months of charter agreement was done, and ratified, and then we gotta go into what's the next process is, because then when they become commission members, they now have decision-making authority as it relates to spending money and hiring people. That's where it gets tricky. That's when we start talking about who is going to be the chief, or how the benefit packages look like. What are we going to do here? Because this is a competitive business. You know, it is, and that's why I refer to it as a business model, because you are competing to not. If you're a nearby neighbor here, you probably are, and that's why I heard those attrition rates, the retention rates that sound pretty horrible to me. That's money gone. That's a loss of human capital gone. Now, is this the magic bullet? No. But is it better? Yes, it is. By all those positives on the board. I'm not sure I answered your question because I kind of rambled.
Renee, let me follow up
Basically,
there.
it's gonna be
Right.
the elected board from
So-
each municipality that's going to
Yes.
make the decision.
Yes, it'll be the 7 members of McDonald that will vote to go forward or not.
And same with the other.
And yes, Mount Pleasant has a 3-member town or supervisor, and so does Robinson. I'll be honest with you. One of my disadvantages is, why do I want to buy a product if I don't know the final cost? And like it was, and I talked to Ann about, Ann talked me off of a ledge one day. It's because like, how am I going to make a vote? How am I going to decide this without knowing the cost or the, you know, the fine print? Why would anybody buy a car or a house without knowing that? But they're going to, the process is come up with this commission and hammer out the details in this charter, and then we will know the fine print with that charter. Then we can make a
So
decision on the
can we
vote.
move forward without Midway or without Robinson?
We need two.
We need
Two, like Midway and McDonald, or McDonald Borough, or whatever.
Then you
I
get
mean, I know
into,
you don't wanna, it's hard for you to understand like, oh, how much is this gonna cost? But like he said, he wrote a grant, he got the grant, well, guess what? That money was used like that with those turnover rates that you
Yeah.
talked about. We lost officer after officer after officer.
Lots.
All that money that you're putting in training and hiring and screening and all that stuff.
Oh, we
basically the
see
grant
that.
he wrote, gone.
we see that definitely, and it
So really,
happens.
when you're looking at that number, I would be okay with
Yeah.
putting it out there as the
Yeah.
unknowable.
Now, well, I think the town halls are gonna be, this is a very political thing, as far as I'm concerned. We're gonna have to take a look to see what happened at the Robinson meeting, how that plays out, the Mount Pleasant meeting, how that plays out. We're gonna have to get a feel on how the vote is gonna go. Because, I mean, we don't wanna be on an island. Now, whether we stick with what we have, whether we charge Robinson more, you know, it's a whole lot of stuff that we still have to decide. And it's
So
gonna,
there would be
it's
another
not
town
gonna,
hall meeting if we don't decide to do it. What are our next steps?
That-
Back to what he said, how are we gonna sustain in the next 5 years if we stay on by ourselves?
Right.
Like, cause those are questions that we would wanna answer.
right.
What is the
And I think that's the beauty of going in as a regional, you know, you have your friends and can rely on them instead of being on that island. I think that's a big plus.
If I could just add, so that's actually, I think, the energy behind these projects is that you really do get, and all the community, all the members get to hear and understand that public dollar and what it's going for to sustain that police organization. This process helps peel that, to use the analogy, peeling back the onion, it helps reveal that and peel that back in a very methodical way, so there's like, oh, aha, I get that. Just one other reference you made about, you know, a couple drop out. In my experience building out a regional police department in Chester County, Pennsylvania, we started out originally, there were 3 of us. It went as many as to 7 before it broke apart, the groups broke apart, and 2 remained. I ended up becoming the chief of that 2 community police department and expanded it into 3. We got in, and now they're talking about expanding back into one of the partners that dropped out back in 2015, now wants to be considered to be in. The regional police department is in a much better position and a position of leverage because they hold the contract, the charter agreement, they've done all the work. They have all the sunk costs. They have the good collective bargaining agreement. The other reason why the Southern community wants to be in is they've turned their apple cart upside down. They can't afford it anymore. So this process helps kind of reveal what that really looks like, not just for next year, but what it could look like for the next 3 to 10 years out. That's really the energy behind this kind of stuff.
All right, who do we have next? Mark.
We have the same question.
Yeah, so I remember my other thing too, real quick. I think it's important for everybody to understand across the municipalities that the study, a lot of numbers and crunching and everything went into that. But that is not the end all be all. Again, correct me if I'm wrong. But this can be tailored based on what they have created to meet the needs of the town or the communities that it's going to serve. And the other comment, and I just want to go back real quick to it, unless it's changed, I have a digital copy of that study from October. It has on here that McDonald Borough is 735,000 per capita, 326.
Expenditures.
That includes the money.
It says police budgets.
Yeah, but that's not right.
It's not correct in our eyes. That's expenditures. And like I said, our police department brings in revenue. So I'm minusing that revenue from that number.
They had the other municipalities in that, too. 2023. Those municipalities like West Middletown was still in that, and Independence was still in that study that wasn't subtracted out.
So what's the proposed expenses for 2024?
For McDonald Borough,
For the borough's police?
410.
For 2024?
Yep.
I'm saying expenditures.
Expenditures,
Expenditures.
708. 708.
Okay.
That's according to our budget, and that's on a line item 62 or whatever it is. But I subtract the revenue, because you have to, it brings in money. Good.
Well, I was just gonna say, even if you use Tom's, I believe it was 410, divided by our 2251 residents, it's 182 a person. So right now, we're talking 182, 180. That's pretty much a wash. The big picture I look at in this is the calls in 2022, McDonald had 43%, Robinson had 37%, but McDonald footed the bill for 82.5% versus Robinson at 12%. So regardless if that 180 or the 300 is an accurate number, Robinson's number is 60. I was at the meeting because I pay taxes there. I have 2 lots in Robinson Township. I was there last night. No offense to anybody there. If anybody from here is from Robinson, it is what it is. Bob, I know you are. They were arrogant. They said we get 4 hours a day. They're cool with that because guess what? They said the minute they call 911, who runs? McDonald. So what's that do to us? Loses coverage here. They're paying $60. We're paying 180, 300, whatever that number is. It's at least 182 based on 410 and our population. So regardless of what we do here with the regional, we gotta figure that situation out too when our contract's up at the end of the year. We are a business. I've been saying that. He just said it. We are a business. I run a business. There's a lot of business owners in the room. Maybe some of you run businesses. It's harder and harder to find. I had 2 employees retire after 40 years. I can't find mechanics. I can't find them anywhere. I would never be a policeman. I would never tell my kid to be a policeman. I commend Dennis and Matt and everybody else that's a cop. Ron. I mean, you guys, I don't think you're telling your kids to do it. Maybe you are. I hope you are, because we need them. But am I right by saying that? Great, thank you. Am I right by saying that the state probably promotes us because just like McDonald and Robinson, well, McDonald and Mount Pleasant, we have a hard time finding police. The state police do as well, correct?
Around the nation, it's hard to find.
So if the state can't find cops and we can't sustain, what's going to happen? We're going to go to the state. What are they going to do? All the more reason the state wants us to make something like this happen and share everybody that we can get. Am I correct?
You're correct, and there's a deeper analysis that that should be understood. When you look at why you have such turnover rates, I mean, how many, not chief, sorry, you're the chief, I was the chief, you're the chief, and you're the chief. It's a good job to have, right? The police officers in the room, how many police officers? All right. How long have you been on the job?
16 years.
Are you still a police officer or do you have rank?
I am still to a police officer as well as a deputy sheriff, rank from corporal until June 1st. I'll get promoted to sergeant.
All right, agree or disagree? The reason why I still do this after 40 years is kind of an odd story, but I'll ask this question now. Do you think young men and women come into the job, you know, to be a police officer, to go push a car for 30 years of their life, do just that? Or do you think they want to do something a little differently, maybe like have a career assistant piece, or have specialized training, or have something that develops them as a better human being to deliver those human being services? Agree or disagree?
I agree.
Okay.
Everybody's looking to promote in advance, and sometimes that takes you outside of the agency you started at.
I started in a two-person police department in 1983. I was the chief of that police department. I guess I am that old. By the time, within 3 years, that is an oddity. No 23-year-old man should be up there as chief. But I did it for about a year because that was the top of my mountain. I went to the City of Newark, Delaware Police Department, where I started right back at the bottom and worked there for 24 years, where I became the in charge of the criminal investigation unit, where I had 25 people working for me in one unit, not 1.5 people working for me in a police organization. So I went backwards in my career. Went to chief, and then I retired from Delaware and came back to PA to kind of deal with this business model here in Pennsylvania, and then build a regional police department to give, not for myself, I was the chief, but to give career opportunity for people to stop this nasty cycle, people going in and out of the job and losing good people from your organization. They're an investment whether you like it or not. You know, and this part-time thing that everybody talks about, well, you got part-time officer, that's great. What's the pitch to a part-time officer, right? Come work for me part-time. We're going to pay you $30 an hour if you're lucky. You're going to work holidays and weekends, and we're not going to give you any benefits. Come work for me. That's done. That model's over with. You need full-time people.
All right, who's next?
Thank you for your service. I'm a new resident. I lived here before, and one of the reasons I moved back here is because I think this is a very safe area. Now, has anyone done any kind of studies about criminal activity from one of these areas to the other area? My concern is that we have police officers here, but they're out in Bergenstown because there's a rash of car break-ins or something like that. So then when we need somebody here, there's nobody around.
Dennis, is there statistics on the differences between the four municipalities?
Joe, I believe Joe has that.
Joe.
Joe, do you have the crimes from all four?
Well, the crimes were lumped in there in the report. I don't have it in front of me, but they were all lumped in with, the crime rate's very low, to be honest with you. It's very low. However, I will tell you that I was the chief in Montgomery County, Pennsylvania, and we had the northeast extension of the turnpike, and unfortunately, we had one of the interchanges. And the turnpike interchange generates a lot of traffic, good and bad and everything in between. And all of a sudden, you have a turnpike in your community. It may not be directly in your community, but I guarantee you it's going to impact all of your communities. You've got 3 interchanges in, I believe, 8-mile stretch. The Turnpike Commission is projecting 36,000 cars a day. A day. That's 13 million cars a year going up and down that 8-mile stretch of road through Robinson and with an interchange to Midway and McDonald and so forth. You know, if 1/2 of 1% of those 36,000 cars a day has bad intentions, that's 36 cars a day getting off somewhere in your community that's looking to commit a crime. Think about that for a minute. 36 cars a day, 1/2 of 1% of those people are criminals. And you times that by a week, that's 250 criminals a week looking to come into Robinson. And believe me, the criminals know where the cops are. We used to catch them, I caught them with maps in their pocket. I told you not to come here, we should have gone over there, you know, and stuff like that. So the dumb ones get caught, is the old saying, because they don't do their homework. And the smart ones are still out there. They don't get caught because they do their homework. And they know where to go and they know where not to go. So when departments have police and they're visible and they're out there and they're patrolling like we have set up in this arrangement, I think it's gonna help, there's no magic bullet to keeping the crime rate low, things happen. But that turnpike is gonna cause you a lot of impact, good and bad, good and bad. But you need to be ahead of that curve rather than playing catch up with that, so. Other than that, I mean, the calls, there was some mention about 4 hours of patrol for Robinson. That's 4 hours they get of patrol. But over and above that, you're handling, there was 995 calls for service handled in Robinson by the police department, by McDonald Police Department. That's 37% of your total calls list in 2022 that were done in Robinson Township. And what's the police department gonna do? Oh, we patrol 4 hours a day. There was an armed robbery now, we're not coming, we'll see you, we're tapped out for today, we're sorry, call somebody else. That's not what happens, they're still gonna go. So that 4 hours of patrol is kind of a misnomer, it really is. They may see an officer for 4 hours, but if something happens and it takes 5 or 6 or 7 hours, they're gonna be there.
Tom, to answer your question, I don't think there's a big difference between the 4 municipalities. I think we're kind of all, we're in the same school district. I don't, I think statistically, none of the 4, the bad people. I think that we're all kind of in the same boat. I think we're all the same kind of people, of all 4. Okay, who's next?
Buddy Hertz, resident. I just have a question. After all these individual meetings, are they gonna have a meeting for everyone together? Because I feel like there's a whole lot of bad stuff floating around, and obviously some of us heard how last night went.
Last night went terrible. But currently there are no plans for that.
I mean, we're making a community decision, for the whole community,
Right.
but everyone's making their own decisions in their own, you know what I mean?
All 4 municipalities will make their decisions on their own. Yeah. But I don't think we're gonna meet as a group.
At this stage of the process, you have to make individual community decisions.
I mean, even
You have
after,
to.
if we decide to move forward or decide to investigate this further, I
Well-
think everyone should get together and
I would, it's not open to the public, but this Thursday, that's exactly what that regional police department is doing, up on the eastern side of Allegheny County, where they're pulling everything, all the communities together for a big meeting. But that's more towards the end after you've gone through these other hurdles.
I agree with you. I was in the Robinson Township meeting, and we didn't get
any of this.
we didn't get this.
Yeah.
We got like a spreadsheet, and then it was like, okay, open questions, but there were not, it was making statements, but it wasn't, this is more like information. So I feel
Right.
like Robinson.
And I thank you for saying that. And I lost a lot of sleep on this, okay? I did not want it to be just one side of the issue jammed down your throat by this, and because it's so awesome. I hope I came across as middle of the road, like trying to, during my presentation, trying to show both sides, and let's talk about both sides of the issues. I really tried not to be one-sided like last night.
Yeah, but I think it was just mainly they just didn't get the opportunity to talk.
Well,
It wasn't we had just,
Right.
a spreadsheet, like, it was pretty much just said stuff and then that was it. So I don't think there was a lot of room for.
Well, I hope we answered your questions. Mike?
Yes. Is there any mechanism that we can tell Robertson to,
Are you throwing stuff at us?
So obviously they, it sounds like they don't want to take part. Is there anything that tells them to, why would they want to spend it on it? Is it
Well, I agree with you, but that's their problem. And tonight we're dealing with McDonald's problem.
Right, I get that.
I can
In
answer
order
some
to
of
make
that.
this,
A lot of the statements that were made was they'd rather give the department more money than do a regional. So they'd rather pay us more than a lot of statements.
Robinson's contract will be up in December. And if they decided to go status quo, then we will renegotiate that
We've been
number.
dealing with Robinson for how many years?
29 years?
We've been getting hammered every year, and the statistics, I'm sure, are fairly consistent, so we should either, and I think the idea of the regional thing makes sense economically, and because of the economics, it can provide better service. But if, why would they pass up the deal with Century? We've been getting hammered, why not just keep hammering us? So I don't know, maybe that's a mistake.
I think, one of the gentlemen, I don't know which one said it, I think this is a business decision you have to make, and there are leverage points in all business decisions. Just let it play itself out.
Wait, two more back here.
Okay, who's next?
Pete?
Yes, is this something that if Robinson or Midway decide, you said you needed two, correct? So if this is something that Robinson and Midway decided to do, not at this time, and you had two, and you did McDonald or Mount Pleasant Township, can Robinson or Midway get in at a later date when they so choose to?
As long as the commission, it will be explained in the charter agreement, how you get in, how you get out, actually, there's a clause in there for that as well, okay? Because that's one of the things, once I join this marriage, can I leave the marriage? So yes, but the good news is for the people that are actually established the charter and have all those investment time and money that's on cost, that's why I said a few moments ago, you're in the leverage seat to be able to talk about what that negotiations look like, because at the end of the day, these things only work, and I hate to use this as an analogy, but they're a marriage. And if they're not a good marriage in the beginning, they're a mess to pull apart, right? They just are. So I think this next process will kind of unveil the authenticity of what that other community or the other communities will look like coming together. And that's really what this next phase is for, is to kind of understand that a little better.
Thank you.
Chuck, in the back. Go ahead.
My name is Charles Lewis Smith. I'm a lifetime member of McDonald's since I was 13 years old. I left Vietnam and I left the Army from here. I love this town. I love the police department, I love the fire department, I love all, well, not all people. Most of the people. But what it is, whenever you, and I went to 2 different contract signings with our union. When you sign on or you sign off, when the ink's dry, you can't take it back now. And whatever things that we decide on, make it concrete. Because it's like being married. Marriage is like a prison term. Never know. I just wanted to add some.
Leave it to 20.
Well said, Chuck.
And as for our council, our mayor, you guys are doing a hell of a good job.
Chuck, thank you for everything you do for this town. Thank you for all your service.
Thank you very much.
And thank you. All right, who's anybody else?
Anybody else?
Marie, do you have a question?
No. Okay.
Go ahead.
Yeah, right up here.
Go ahead.
Go ahead.
Okay, if Robinson doesn't agree, okay, and next year, they have an emergency, they call McDonald, does McDonald have to go?
This year, 2024?
Yeah, we're going to disagree, if Robinson's not part of it.
I would imagine, and this is just a guess, if Robinson doesn't go, they will still have to contract with somebody. They'll have to contract with the new regional, they'll have to contract with the state police. They'll be covered somewhere, but they'll,
McDonald, this regional thing.
It would depend on what the call is.
Yeah.
How serious the call is.
If there's an emergency, someone can go. All right, any more? Go ahead, Tim.
I think this meeting's been great. Everybody recognizes, I believe, that there's a lot of questions and unknowns. and you're not gonna answer them overnight. It's gonna take a while. And I think that, the decision, well, right now, we haven't really talked about the final decision. We've talked about forming up the, commission and that sort of thing, but how do we make the ultimate decision that we are going to do this or not do this? And it's been sort of alluded to that council will do that. And having been a member of council and even had Tom's job for a while, I agree that council has the authority to do that. But my concern is, with the time that we have and all the questions, that we need to take time and study this, and I think it should go to referendum. We have plenty of time to get it on the ballot for November. There's plenty of time to do that, and I think the people in McDonald should vote on it and lead council in that direction. Council has good people on there. They have enough, there's an odd number, they can come up with a decision, but you know there's gonna be dissension. I think it needs to go to referendum, that everybody in McDonald has time to be told, leave these folks, continue to educate us on what the questions are, and in November, we go in and mark yes or no, and go with what the community says.
Well, the current situation, just to be clear, is that the 7 members of council will be voting on it, the yes or no, and we were elected to be your voice. And I think it's an everyday occurrence that we pass laws, we pass budgets, we pass everything because we hear you by you voted us. If we do terrible, vote us out. If you don't like it, vote us out. But we are your voice, unfortunately, like it or not, and the 7 members will be making that vote.
Mr. President, real quick about the referendum. It's technically unlawful in the state of Pennsylvania to put a referendum on the ballot. Per the Pennsylvania referendum handbook, it's not allowed. It's under
And that was brought up at the Robinson meeting last night by their solicitor.
But we're just gonna go with, right now, the 7 of us will vote.
Thank you. Tim?
Oh, best class.
Be loud, you got it.
You want this?
Nope. Yes.
One more.
All right, we got one more question, and then we're gonna wrap it up.
You all know who I am. This is going to come, and I'm going to be very, very disliked for this. First and foremost, I am dead set against this for a multitude of reasons. First of all, I don't think that they should be able to vote what goes on for us. I was told that I voted for them to do this. I didn't vote for you to do my safety. I put Dennis in charge of my safety. I want the McDonald cops here. I don't want them somewhere else. Everybody keeps on talking about how we're going to have the different cops in the area. Dennis, how many cops are on duty at any given time here?
1, 2,
How many cops are going to be on duty with this regionalization?
2, 3.
So how am I going to get any more safer? I'm still getting the same amount of coverage. What happens, guys, when we decided in 2 years that we're going to want to do this and we want to opt out? Can we get the police department back? No. So has anybody thought of that? What happens with that? What happens when all the grant money goes away? Because let's face it, federal money's not going to be there forever. It's not going to be there forever. It's going to go away. So then what do we do? Anybody? Anybody? I want to know. Someone tell me. How does this work?
You don't build your budgets around grants, okay? I said that when I made the grant presentation. Joe Kirschner said the same thing. You don't build a budget around grants because they do have an expiration date. But in order to get access to those dollars, this is the model they're supporting.
But the dollars don't last. Yes, it's going to go away.
That we came up
That's
with, the
correct.
$1.5 million doesn't include grants.
That's correct.
They're icing on the cake if we get it.
Under the perfect scenario, the 1.5 would come down with grants, because the 1.5 does not include the grants right now. So. Go ahead, Matt. One last question.
So I just wanted to thank everybody. Last night's meeting, it was all very hostile. Everybody tonight has been very open, good conversation. I want to thank everybody from Mount Pleasant. I am the police chief of Mount Pleasant. I also worked for McDonald in 2009. And to the question there, I'm not trying to, we have 5 officers, including myself, at Mount Pleasant, that we were also get back because we were all working together like we commonly do now. But I did want to thank everybody for truly letting me attend and being very kind towards Mount Pleasant. I certainly appreciate it.
Thanks, Matt. And Shane and Matt, good luck for tomorrow. You're gonna need it. Yes, thank you. Please. Thank you. Please fill out your survey if you haven't done already and leave it in the box back on the table as you exit, because that would really, really help me when you've got some. Thanks for coming.